The text came just as I was leaving my mother's funeral. My hands were still shaking from placing the final rose on her casket when my phone buzzed with Marcus's message. Don't bother coming home. Change the locks. Emma needs the space. Emma, his 24-year-old yoga instructor. The woman he'd been just friends with for months while my mother was dying of cancer. And now, on the day I buried my mom, he was kicking me out of my own home. I stared at my phone, reading the message again through tears that had nothing to do with grief. My name is Olivia Parker, and at 35, I was watching my life crumble in real time. First, my mother's death after a brutal 8-month battle with cancer, and now this, my husband of 12 years choosing the day of her funeral to show his true colors. Another message buzzed through. Your stuff is in storage unit 47 at Safekeep. Take your time getting it. Emma and I will be christening every room of our new home tonight. My Aunt Sarah touched my arm gently, noticing my distress. Liv, what's wrong? I showed her the messages, watching her face transform from concern to fury. That bastard, she hissed, gripping my phone so tight I thought it might crack. He's kicking you out? Today of all days. I nodded, feeling strangely calm despite everything. Maybe I was in shock, or maybe I'd just run out of tears. He changed the locks while I was burying Mom. What Marcus didn't know, what he'd never bothered to learn during our marriage, was that the house wasn't just any property. It was my inheritance, left to me by my grandfather 5 years ago. The same grandfather who'd raised me after my father died, who'd taught me about real estate and the importance of protecting what was mine. Don't put his name on the deed. Grandpa had warned me when Marcus and I got married. I've seen too many good people lose everything because they trusted the wrong person. At the time, I thought he was being paranoid. Now, standing in a cemetery where we just laid my mother to rest, I was grateful for his foresight. I dialed Mr. Thompson, my grandfather's old lawyer who still handled all my legal affairs. He answered on the second ring. Olivia, I'm so sorry about your mother. How are you holding up? Marcus changed the locks on my house, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. He's moving his girlfriend in. There was a pause, then a low chuckle that held no humor. The house your grandfather left you, the one that's solely in your name. That's the one. Give me an hour, he said, his tone shifting from sympathetic to businesslike. Don't respond to any more of his messages. Don't go to the house. Let him dig his hole deeper. I ended the call and turned to my Aunt Sarah, who was still seating beside me. Can I stay with you tonight? Of course, sweetheart, as long as you need. She squeezed my hand. What are you going to do? I looked at my phone as another message came through, this one with a photo of Emma sprawled across my mother's antique couch. The one she'd left me in her was just last week. The rage that filled me was ice cold and clarifying. I'm going to let Marcus learn a very expensive lesson about checking property records before making stupid decisions. The next few hours passed in a blur. Sarah drove us back to her house, where I changed out of my funeral dress into jeans and a sweater. Mr. Thompson called back with a game plan, his voice carrying a note of satisfaction I hadn't heard before. I've contacted the police, he said. They'll meet us at the house tomorrow morning. What Marcus has done is illegal, changing locks and attempting to take possession of property he has no right to. The fact that he did it while you were at your mother's funeral, well, let's just say the judge isn't going to look kindly on that. My phone kept buzzing with messages from Marcus, each one more arrogant than the last. Emma loves what I've done with the master bedroom. Your taste was always so boring. And later, don't worry about the garden. Emma's going to dig up those roses your mom planted. She wants to put in a meditation space. Each message was carefully screenshotted and forwarded to Mr. Thompson, evidence of Marcus's intentions, his casual cruelty, his complete disregard for my property rights. I didn't respond to any of them, though my fingers itched to tell him exactly what was coming. That evening, curled up on Sarah's couch with a cup of tea, I found myself looking through old photos on my phone. Marcus and I, on our wedding day, both smiling, both so young. Had he always been this person? This selfish, this cruel? Or had it happened gradually, so slowly I hadn't noticed until it was too late? You know what your mom would say right now? Sarah said, sitting down beside me. She'd say, sometimes people show you exactly who they are. Believe them the first time. I smiled, remembering Mom's wisdom, her strength. She'd never really liked Marcus, though she'd been too kind to say it outright. Maybe she'd seen something in him that I'd been too blind to notice. Tomorrow's going to be interesting, I said, putting my phone away. Marcus has no idea what's coming. Sarah grinned, a fierce expression that reminded me so much of Mom it hurt. Want me to come with you? I'd love to see his face when he realizes what he's done. I nodded, feeling stronger than I had all day. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but for now, I had family by my side and the law on my side. Marcus thought he'd won, thought he could discard me like yesterday's trash and take what was mine. He was about to learn exactly how wrong he was. The next morning dawned bright and cold. I had barely slept, but adrenaline coursed through my veins as Sarah and I pulled up to my house. 2 police cars were already waiting, along with Mr. Thompson's sleek black sedan. Marcus's new Tesla was in the driveway, parked in the exact spot where Mom used to park when she came to visit. The sight of it made my blood boil, but I kept my expression neutral as I stepped out of the car. Mrs. Parker, Officer Reynolds greeted me, his face professional but sympathetic. Mr. Thompson has briefed us on the situation. Are you ready to proceed? I nodded, straightening my spine. More than ready. Mr. Thompson approached, carrying a thick folder. I have all the documentation here, the deed, property tax records, your grandfather's will. There's no question about ownership. He paused, a slight smile crossing his face. Shall we? Officer Reynolds knocked firmly on the door. We could hear music playing inside, laughter. The sounds of my life being overwritten by strangers. The door opened, and there stood Emma in what appeared to be one of my silk robes, her face falling when she saw the police. Can I help you? She asked, trying to sound confident, but her voice wavered slightly. Is Marcus Wilson here? Officer Reynolds asked. We need to speak with both of you. Babe, who is it? Marcus's voice called from inside. He appeared behind Emma, shirtless, looking like he owned the place. His smug expression froze when he saw me standing between 2 police officers. What's going on? He demanded, pushing past Emma to stand in the doorway. Olivia, what are you doing? I told you not to come back. Mr. Thompson stepped forward. Mr. Wilson, I'm Richard Thompson, Mrs. Parker's attorney. I'm here to inform you that you're currently illegally occupying property that belongs solely to my client. You have exactly 1 hour to gather your personal belongings and vacate the premises. Marcus's face reddened. This is my house. I've been living here for years. You can't just. Actually, I interrupted, my voice steady. It's not your house. It never was. Check the deed, Marcus. I told you to do that yesterday, remember? Mr. Thompson held out the property records. The house was inherited by Mrs. Parker from her grandfather 5 years ago. Your name isn't on any of the documentation. By changing the locks and attempting to take possession, you've committed several crimes, including criminal trespassing and attempted theft. Emma's face had gone pale. Marcus, you said this was your house. You said. It is my house, Marcus shouted, his cool facade cracking. I'm her husband. Everything she has is mine. Officer Reynolds stepped forward. Sir, that's not how property law works. You need to start gathering your belongings now, or we'll have to escort you out as is. I looked past them into my house, and felt my heart clench. In just 1 day, they'd managed to create chaos. Empty wine bottles littered the coffee table. Mom's antique vase was knocked over, dirt spilled across the hardwood floors she had loved so much. And there, in the corner, was a pile of framed photos, my family photos, face down on the floor. 1 hour, I said, my voice cold. And Emma, that's my robe you're wearing. Take it off. The next 60 minutes were excruciating. Marcus alternated between pleading and threatening as he threw clothes into bags. Emma darted around like a scared rabbit, gathering her things while trying to avoid everyone's eyes. You can't do this to me, Marcus kept saying. Where am I supposed to go? Emma's lease is up. We were going to live here. You should have thought about that before you changed the locks while I was at my mother's funeral, I replied calmly. Each time he started to argue, I held up my phone, showing the messages he had sent. Would you like me to read these out loud? The ones where you bragged about christening my house? Sarah stood beside me, her presence a solid comfort as we watched them pack. She had been taking photos of the damage they caused. The scratched floors, the stained carpets, the broken pieces of my life they carelessly tossed aside. You'll be receiving a bill for the damages, Mr. Thompson informed Marcus. I suggest you pay it promptly if you want to avoid additional legal complications. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Marcus and Emma stood on the front lawn with their hastily packed bags. The neighbors had begun to gather, watching the scene unfold with poorly concealed interest. "You'll regret this," Marcus spat, his handsome face twisted with rage. "You think you've won? I'll sue you for everything you have." I stepped closer to him, close enough to smell the expensive cologne I had given him for Christmas last year. "No, Marcus, you won't. Because if you try, I'll make sure everyone sees these messages. I'll make sure they know you kicked your wife out of her own house while she was burying her mother. How do you think that will look to your clients? To your precious country club friends?" He flinched, and in that moment, I saw him clearly for the first time, not as my husband, not as the man I had loved for 12 years, but as a coward who had thought he could take what wasn't his. "And Marcus," I added, watching him pause by his Tesla, "the car payments come from my account. You might want to look into that too." As they drove away, Emma crying in the passenger seat, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The house was a mess, but it was mine. Every broken item, every stain, every scratch was just evidence of who Marcus really was. Officer Reynolds approached with his notepad. "Would you like to press charges, Mrs. Parker?" What they did, especially the timing of it, could be considered criminal. I thought about it for a moment, looking at my beautiful home, thinking of my mom, my grandfather, everything they had worked to protect. "Yes," I said firmly. "Yes, I would." Sarah squeezed my hand. "Mom would be so proud of you right now." As the police began documenting the damage, I walked through each room, taking in the chaos Marcus and Emma had created in just one day. In the master bedroom, they had thrown my clothes into garbage bags. In the kitchen, they had already replaced my coffee maker with Emma's fancy espresso machine. And in the garden, I stopped cold. The roses, Mom's roses, they had actually started digging them up. Standing there, looking at the uprooted plants my mother had tenderly cared for, something hardened inside me. This wasn't just about the house anymore. This was about honoring the people who had loved me, who had protected me, who had taught me to stand up for myself. Marcus thought the story was over. He thought he had lost the house and that would be the end of it. He had no idea what was coming next. In the weeks that followed, Marcus learned exactly what happens when you underestimate a woman with nothing left to lose. The criminal charges for trespassing and property damage were just the beginning. Once word got out about what he'd done, kicking his wife out during her mother's funeral, his carefully crafted social image crumbled. The country club, where he'd spent every Saturday networking with clients, quietly revoked his membership. His law firm, which prided itself on family values, placed him on indefinite leave pending an ethics review. Emma disappeared to Bali, posting vague Instagram quotes about toxic relationships and learning to trust again. She quickly figured out that Marcus wasn't the wealthy divorcee he pretended to be. But the real blow came when Marcus discovered just how much of his lifestyle had been funded by my accounts. The Tesla was repossessed. His credit cards, all linked to my stellar credit history, were canceled. The monthly payments to his investment accounts stopped. "He's trying to negotiate," Mr. Thompson told me during one of our meetings. "Says he'll drop all claims to the house if you'll agree to support him financially for 6 months while he gets back on his feet." I almost laughed. And I told him he's lucky we're not suing him for emotional distress. The judge was particularly interested in the photos of your mother's damaged roses. Those roses, I'd spent days carefully replanting them, nursing them back to health. Each one felt like a small victory, a way of honoring Mom's memory while erasing the damage Marcus had tried to cause. One morning, about a month after everything happened, I was having coffee on my porch when a familiar Tesla pulled up. Marcus stepped out, looking thinner, his designer clothes replaced by department store basics. "Olivia," he called out, staying by the car as if uncertain of his welcome. "Can we talk?" I sipped my coffee, thinking of all the times I've forgiven him, all the times I let him smooth talk his way out of consequences. "No, Marcus, we can't." "Please," he stepped forward, his voice taking on that wheedling tone I'd once found charming. "I made a mistake. I see that now. Emma was nothing, just a midlife crisis. You're my wife." "Ex-wife," I corrected. "The divorce was finalized yesterday. Didn't your lawyer tell you?" He paled. But we were supposed to have a hearing." You waived your right to a hearing when you failed to respond to the court summons. Check your mail sometimes, Marcus. Those legal notices weren't junk. He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I once found endearing but now just seemed pathetic. What am I supposed to do? I've lost everything. No, I stood up, finally ready to say what I should have said years ago. You threw everything away. There's a difference. Just then, Sarah pulled up in her car. She'd been coming over every morning, helping me restore the garden, making sure I wasn't alone. She took one look at Marcus and pulled out her phone. Should I call Officer Reynolds? She asked loudly. He said to report any trespassing immediately. Marcus backed away quickly, almost tripping over his own feet. I'm leaving. I needed. What you need, I said firmly, is to get in your car and drive away. Don't come back, Marcus. Don't call. Don't text. It's over. As his car disappeared down the street, Sarah came to stand beside me. You okay? I looked around at my home, really looked at it. The roses were blooming again, their pink petals bright against the morning sun. Through the window, I could see Mom's antique vase, restored and filled with fresh flowers. The house felt peaceful, clean, like it had been cleansed of something toxic. You know what? I smiled at my aunt. I really am. 6 months later, I was hosting a garden party. Friends, family, and neighbors gathered to celebrate the complete restoration of Mom's rose garden. Mr. Thompson came raising a toast to justice served with thorns. Even some of Marcus's former friends showed up, having chosen sides definitively after seeing his true colors. I heard through the grapevine that Marcus had moved back in with his parents in Ohio. Emma was engaged to a yoga instructor in Bali. Their brief attempt to steal my life had become nothing more than a cautionary tale, a reminder to trust my instincts and stand my ground. Standing in my garden, surrounded by people who truly cared about me, I felt my mom's presence strongly. She would have loved this, the flowers blooming, the laughter, the sense of family and community. More than that, she would have been proud of how I'd handled everything. Your mother always said you were stronger than you knew, Sarah said, coming to stand beside me. Guess she was right. I touched one of the roses gently, its petals soft against my fingers. She usually was. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the garden, but I wasn't afraid of shadows anymore. Sometimes the darkest moments in our lives lead us to the brightest futures. We just have to be brave enough to stand our ground and fight for what's ours. Marcus had thought he could take everything from me on the day I was most vulnerable. Instead, he'd given me something priceless. The knowledge that I was stronger than any storm, capable of not just surviving but thriving. And those roses, they bloomed more beautifully than ever that year.